In this short documentary, we'll be finding out and demonstrating just how suggestible the human mind is. This is Sense and Suggestibility.
Not only are there suggestible personalities, but as far as I'm concerned, there are degrees of suggestibility within individuals.
Since the beginning of time, people have come to believe myths, sightings, news stories, conspiracies, and the Book of Mormon. We're encouraged by great illusionists, tabloid headlines and internet rumours, and without thinking we seem to believe them or fail to question them at the time. But why? We're here at the University of Essex to interview Dr. Todd Landman, a metaphysical magician and professor of government here at the uni.
Well, the great one, of course, is H.G. Wells' World of Worlds, which was a radio program run by Orson Welles. And because it was on the radio and they never announced what was happening, people just sort of tuned in at different times and believed what they were hearing, and it caused, of course, mass panic. Of course, the Loch Ness Monster is a great hoax and a great conspiracy theory. There have been many people that have claimed to have seen it and or made it rise from the water, etc. I have a colleague of mine who runs a company called the Lebanon Circle, who created a bunch of fairies that were corpses of the Cottingley fairies, and he successfully got that placed in a newspaper, and the whole story ran and became a very famous hoax in this country.
Small towns and communities are often connected by myths and local folklore. The origins of their existence can be questioned due to lack of evidence, and that the sightings or stories may not be plausible enough.
Well, I love all the local stories, of course, and where I live is I'm very near where the Witchfinder General did a lot of his work, and so there's always a myth around these stories. There's probably the essence of something true that then leads to the story, and they become mythical in proportion, and then the folklore that sort of surrounds that develops kind of life of its own. Actually believing in some of these creatures and some of these stories, personally, no, but I'm very much entertained by the way in which those myths grow around those stories, for sure.
With the influence of others around them, are people more suggestible as a group or as an individual?
They're both suggestible, but differently so. So I can work one-on-one with an individual and achieve all sorts of suggestibility, whether it's through individual hypnotic trance induction or any other type of demonstration. However, I have had experiences both in terms of hypnosis experiments and my own performances where entire crowds of people have been rather suggestible about what I'm doing. And one great example is I have a sort of background slide of a mystical square. It's kind of a Hebrew mystical square, and I expose that to the audience for about 20 seconds and then ask one member of the audience to think of a number. And when the Hebrew figures are translated into modern numbers and all added up in every direction, they add up to the number that the person was thinking of. And over the break, I heard the explanation coming out of the audience and said, well, it's obvious. We just looked at that square, and it was the power of subliminal suggestion. It made us think of the number that had used.
If people are so suggestible, would age make a difference? Kids believe that Santa Claus, the Tooth Fairy, and that people dressed in colourful suits are real. So would that make a difference when compared to the older, wiser generation?
It's funny, you would expect younger people to be more suggestible because they haven't had life experience, etc. But oftentimes I find in the teenage group and young 20s, they're quite cynical, quite skeptical about things. But if you give them a short demonstration of some sort of power or something that's a little bit unexplained, they get hooked and interested. And equally, you think older people would be less suggestible because they've had more life experience, but those that have thought deeply about certain things might be even more suggestible with references to deeper powers or mystical forces and things like that. And I find that in everything I do, I can almost get equal suggestibility across groups.
With hundreds fleeing from a so-called alien invasion, sightings of mythological beasts, and questioning world events, perhaps people aren't so suggestible, but merely not stand in the way of what could be true or false.